Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Russia hits Odesa grain facility in overnight missile strike. Hamas military leader announces the beginning of a new operation against Israel. EU veteran Tusk heads into final week of battle to steer country from populism. President says Wagner chief plotted coup against Moldova before his death. Japan statistics fail to fully capture inflation surge. Russia hits Odesa grain facility in overnight missile strike. Reuters. Russian forces launched a missile strike on Ukraine's Odesa region, damaging port infrastructure. 4 people were wounded in the attack, which hit a boarding house and a portside grain facility. The attack was carried out using supersonic Onyx missiles fired from Russian-occupied Crimea. These regular missile and drone strikes on port infrastructure have made it difficult for Ukraine to export its grain. Moscow had previously quit a deal that allowed Black Sea grain shipments, contributing to a global food crisis. Hamas military leader announces the beginning of a new operation against Israel. The Toronto Star. The leader of Hamas military wing has announced the launch of a new military operation against Israel. In a rare public statement, Mohammed Deif said that 5,000 rockets had been launched into Israel, and he urged all Palestinians to confront Israel. In response, Israel issued a security warning, ordering residents across the region to remain indoors. EU veteran Tusk heads into final week of battle to steer country from populism. The Guardian. Donald Tusk, former Polish Prime Minister and President of the European Council, has returned to Polish politics ahead of parliamentary elections on October 13. Tusk, who leads the center-right Civic Coalition, is aiming to prevent the nationalist, populist Law and Justice, PiS, party from securing a third term in office. In power since 2015, PiS has implemented a number of controversial policies, including curtailing women's rights and eroding democratic institutions. The party has also clashed with the European Union over the rule of law. Tusk, whose political career spans over a decade, has run a slick campaign, attempting to counter the stereotype that his party represents the metropolitan elite. Most polls suggest that the election is too close to call, with smaller parties likely to hold the balance of power. Tusk has described the election as the last chance to stop the construction of a semi-authoritarian system. If Tusk is successful, his government may face difficulties in governing, due to the politicization of state institutions by PiS. President says Wagner chief plotted coup against Moldova before his death. South China Morning Post. Moldova's President Maya Sandu has accused Russia's Wagner paramilitary force of attempting to foment a coup against her. Sandu claims that the group, led by Yevgeny Prigozhin, was also attempting to encourage anti-government protests to become violent. Sandu has previously accused Russia of plotting a coup against Moldova's government by exploiting protests. She has also accused Russia of attempting to destabilize the country by bribing voters ahead of next month's local elections. Moscow denies the allegations and has previously accused Moldova of pursuing an anti-Russian agenda. Japan statistics fail to fully capture inflation surge. Nikkei Asia. Japan's official inflation statistics may not accurately reflect actual price increases, creating challenges for policymakers and businesses in assessing the state of the economy. An alternative calculation that reflects recent consumption trends suggests that consumer inflation in August was 0.5 point higher than the official figure. A Bank of Japan survey also indicates that consumers perceive price increases to be faster than the official inflation reading. The current method of calculating the Consumer Price Index, CPI, in Japan is based on past consumption patterns and is only updated every 5 years, which means it does not fully capture large price fluctuations. China's genetically modified giant rice harvest feeds into food security drive. South China Morning Post. China has successfully harvested its second crop of genetically modified giant rice, achieving a yield of 12.6 tons per hectare. The high-yielding strain of rice, which grows twice as tall as ordinary rice, was grown in a mountainous region in Guizhou province with challenging soil conditions. The harvest is seen as progress in China's efforts to bolster food security amid rising global rice prices. The genetically modified rice variety was developed in 2017 by the Institute of Subtropical Agriculture at the Chinese Academy of Sciences and has been cultivated in 22 regions across China. The oil patch is primed for an era of mega deals. Wall Street Journal. The U.S. oil industry is on the verge of consolidation that could put several unruly shale frackers into the hands of a few old guard producers. The Permian Basin in West Texas and New Mexico is the most likely target for deal-making, with investors and energy executives predicting a scramble. The potential wave of deals could reshape the U.S. oil and gas industry, moving it from an era of small drillers chasing growth to one dominated by the largest Western oil firms. This new order could resemble the industry's mega mergers of the late 1990s, such as Exxon and Mobil, Chevron and Texaco, and BP and Amoco. Oil producers have traditionally avoided rigorous antitrust scrutiny, as their products compete globally, so regulators are unlikely to block future deals. Exxon, Chevron and other major firms have large amounts of cash, but investors have demanded discipline and large payouts, rather than chasing unprofitable growth. As investors anticipate further deals, the stocks of frackers increased by around $16 billion in market capitalization. Could Steve Scalise quell the House GOP revolt to become Speaker? Wall Street Journal. Steve Scalise, the number 2 Republican in the House, is in a strong position to become the new Speaker, but his seniority and the possibility of a smooth transition may be seen as negative points by some. A small group of anti-establishment conservatives wants more influence in the party's inner circle, and Scalise is seen by some as too much of a product of the existing system to lead a conference that wants change. Ohio Representative Jim Jordan, who is more aligned with the rebels, has also entered the contest. Scalise's personal situation is also a challenge. Recently, he announced that he had been diagnosed with multiple myeloma, a blood cancer that can cause fatigue and put patients at risk of infection. Standing in his way is Kevin McCarthy, who is supported by a lot of Scalise's allies. McCarthy has left some Republicans with questions about whether Scalise is up to the demands of the job. The role involves raising money for the party, including many nights and weekends of fundraising events. Scalise insists that his doctors have cleared him to take on the work. Scalise is seen as a unifier who can quell the open warfare that erupted after 7 Republicans supported the motion to vacate the speakership, ending McCarthy's tenure. Supporters of Scalise point out that he is already raising funds for the party, and that he is known for his hospitality and personal touches. Scalise is also remembered for how he rallied his colleagues after being shot in 2017 during a congressional baseball practice. Scalise's doctors expect his chemotherapy treatment to be shortened to just 2 more months, given how well he is responding. Ukraine's liberated areas struggle as land mines, worker shortages hamper recovery. Wall Street Journal. The economic recovery in eastern Ukraine has been slow, with businesses contending with a lack of lending, labor shortages, land mines and proximity to an active front line. This poses a threat to Ukraine's overall recovery, as companies and people who fled the violence stay away. The economic challenges in these liberated regions also pose a problem for the 20% of Ukraine that Russia still holds, as it could change the economic makeup of Ukraine. The war has caused the economy in Ukraine to contract, with the eastern regions on the front line experiencing the worst of the damage. Roughly 10% of farmland in liberated areas is out of action due to land mines. The inability to secure financing is also a problem for local businesses, as loans to businesses in the region have fallen 46%. Furthermore, several big employers have yet to return to liberated areas, as they moved to safer parts of the country earlier in the war. As Ukraine integrates more with Western Europe, companies are more likely to stay or start up in the country's west and away from its Russia-facing east. U.S. and Turkish diplomats de-escalate tensions after Turkish drone shot down. ABC. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has spoken to Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan after U.S. forces in Syria shot down an armed Turkish drone. Blinken highlighted the need for the two countries to coordinate and deconflict their activities as they share the common objective of defeating terrorist threats. Turkey confirmed the incident but assigned no blame, saying the drone was lost due to different technical evaluations with third parties on the ground. Turkey lists the YPG as a terrorist organization and considers it indistinguishable from the PKK, which has fought an insurgency against the country since 1984. The United States and European Union deem the PKK as terrorists but not the YPG. That's all the news for today, folks. Let's take a moment to recap what we've learned. Russia launched a missile strike on Ukraine's Odesa region, damaging port infrastructure and hindering Ukraine's grain exports. Hamas military leader announced a new operation against Israel, prompting security warnings and urging Palestinians to confront Israel. Former Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk returned to Polish politics, aiming to prevent the nationalist, populist Law and Justice Party from securing a third term. Moldova's president accused Russia's Wagner paramilitary force of attempting to foment a coup and destabilize the country. Japan's official inflation statistics may not accurately reflect actual price increases, causing challenges for policymakers and businesses. China successfully harvested its second crop of genetically modified giant rice, boosting efforts to enhance food security. The U.S. oil industry is on the verge of consolidation, potentially reshaping the industry with a wave of mega deals. Steve Scalise, the number 2 Republican in the House, is in a strong position to become the new Speaker, but faces challenges from anti-establishment conservatives. The economic recovery in eastern Ukraine has been slow due to land mines, worker shortages, and proximity to the active front line. U.S. and Turkish diplomats de-escalated tensions after a Turkish drone was shot down by U.S. forces in Syria. Now, let's dive into some analysis. The missile strike by Russia on Ukraine's port infrastructure further complicates the already tense situation in the region. This attack not only damages Ukraine's ability to export its grain but also contributes to the global food crisis. It's a clear example of Russia using its military power to exert influence and disrupt its neighbor's economy. Meanwhile, Hamas' announcement of a new military operation against Israel escalates the ongoing conflict between the two sides. The situation is volatile, and both parties need to find a way to de-escalate tensions and work towards a peaceful resolution. In Poland, Donald Tusk's return to politics highlights the growing divide between the nationalist, populist Law and Justice Party and those who seek to counter its policies. The upcoming parliamentary elections will be a test for the country's political landscape and its relationship with the European Union. Moldova's president's accusations against Russia's Wagner paramilitary force add to the already strained relationship between the two countries. The alleged attempts to foment a coup and destabilize Moldova further complicate the political situation in the region. Turning to Japan, the discrepancy between official inflation statistics and actual price increases raises concerns for policymakers and businesses. Accurate data is crucial for making informed decisions, and the current method of calculating inflation may not fully capture the reality of price fluctuations. China's successful harvest of genetically modified giant rice is a significant step in its efforts to enhance food security. With rising global rice prices, China's ability to produce high-yielding crops is crucial for ensuring a stable food supply. In the U.S., the potential wave of mega deals in the oil industry could reshape the sector, consolidating power in the hands of a few major players. This shift could have implications for the market and competition within the industry. The race for the House Speaker position in the U.S. is heating up, with Steve Scalise and Kevin McCarthy as the front-runners. Scalise's personal situation and the desire for change within the party could impact his chances, but his reputation as a unifier and his ability to raise funds may give him an edge. The slow economic recovery in eastern Ukraine highlights the challenges faced by businesses in the region. Land mines, worker shortages, and proximity to the front line hinder progress and pose a threat to Ukraine's overall recovery. Lastly, the de-escalation of tensions between the US and Turkey after the Turkish drone incident is a positive development. The need for coordination and deconfliction between the two countries is crucial in their shared objective of defeating terrorist threats. That's all for today's news analysis. Remember, folks, these are complex issues that require thoughtful consideration and dialogue. I encourage you to share your thoughts and questions. What are your ideas on these developments? Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.